In an empire built on numbers and algorithms, billionaire Julian Cross thought he controlled everything, until his entire fortune vanished in a flash. At the center of the chaos? The maid's daughter, Amara. Silent, unnoticed, and underestimated, until she slipped into his system and turned it against him. Now, as Julian watches his empire collapse, Amara's skills are the only hope to rebuild, but there's a secret at play. Someone close to Julian sabotaged everything. And as the shadows of betrayal close in, Amara holds the power to bring down more than just one man's empire. Will she expose the truth, or become part of the conspiracy? His billion-dollar trading empire collapsed in seconds. While he begged investors for mercy, the maid's daughter slipped into his system and did something no one saw coming. The crash came at 9:42 a.m. One moment, Julian Cross was sipping $300 cold brew on the 89th floor of his penthouse office, watching his AI-based trading system, Vanta, orchestrate market movements like a symphony. The next, he was staring at a screen that blinked red. Unauthorized breach detected. Then another alert. Trade cancellation executed. And another. $3.2 billion loss registered. His hand froze midair, fingers trembling as his espresso cup hit the mahogany desk and spilled over untouched pancakes. The heartbeat in his ears drowned out everything else. Notifications, incoming calls, emergency messages. The empire he'd built from thin air and algorithms was imploding. Just 20 feet away, in the narrow servants' hallway beyond the kitchen, Amara James, 18 years old and quiet as wallpaper, sat cross-legged on a stool with a half-broken tablet on her lap. Her earbuds, cheap ones from a dollar store, crackled with the sound of a Julian Cross webinar from 4 years ago. A great trader doesn't chase markets. He creates them. Through precision, discipline, and control. She watched the screen glitch once, then paused the video. From the corner of her eye, she saw the blinking lights through the frosted glass wall of Julian's control room. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Back in the control room, Julian's voice cracked. Vanta, override. Execute recovery protocol. Execute recovery. The system refused. And then the kill shot. System integrity compromised. Total asset access revoked. He stood up too fast. Stumbled back. His reflection in the blackout monitor startled him. A ghost in an Italian suit, with terror replacing certainty. He slammed his fist into the desk. The silence that followed was complete. No advisors. No engineers. No partners. Just him. The man who never needed people, now staring into the abyss alone. In the hallway, Amara slowly removed her earbuds. She listened. Not to the silence. To the cracks inside it. A man sobbing. A whisper, "No, no, no." She'd never heard him cry. Not once in the 7 years her mother had worked as his maid. But she didn't move. Didn't call out. Not yet. Upstairs, Amara James, Amara's mother, vacuumed the guest suite quietly. When she passed the cracked office door and heard Julian whispering desperate commands to a dead machine, she paused, just a second. Then kept walking. It wasn't her world to enter. Julian stared at the final screen, blinking blue, as if mocking him. $0 available liquidity. Gone. His identity. His control. His gut was dead. And in its place? Nothing. Just the sound of his own unraveling. Have you ever watched someone who seemed untouchable fall apart in front of you? Did it change how you saw them? Thank you for sticking around with me, my wonderful story family. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Before the crash, Julian Cross woke up every morning at 4:45 a.m., not out of discipline, but out of fear. He would never call it that, of course. He called it precision. He liked silence, machines, and coffee roasted from volcanic soil. He liked numbers that bent to his will. He liked control. And more than anything, he liked distance. From the board, from the press, from the soft, unpredictable nature of human beings. Julian wasn't born wealthy. He was born in Detroit, To a single mother who taught high school math and died of a heart attack before her 47th birthday. He'd clawed his way into Harvard, eating instant noodles while his classmates wore Rolexes. His rise from nothing became his armor. But success didn't heal the wound. It just hid it. So when he built his penthouse, it had no personal photos. No guests. No warmth. Just glass, steel, and a server room larger than the kitchen. Because in Julian's world, you didn't need people. You programmed systems that would never disappoint you. In the same building, Amara James moved through life like smoke, present but never noticed. She was a watcher. Her mother, Marietta, had cleaned Julian's home for almost a decade, never missing a day, never asking for anything beyond the wire transfer every Friday. Amara had grown up in the background of that world. She sat quietly in the corner with a book while her mother scrubbed baseboards. She learned to fold towels with military precision. And she memorized how to pass through a room without leaving a trace. She was never introduced to Julian. He knew of her. The maid's daughter. The girl who sometimes waited in the kitchen. He never asked her name. Not once. But Amara knew his. She knew his rhythms, his schedules, his moods. She watched his webinars on her broken tablet and studied the curves of market prediction graphs the way other kids memorized pop lyrics. At 15, she figured out how to clone his old trading bot on open-source software. At 16, she wrote her first patch script to correct a latency bug she noticed during a live stream. She didn't do it to impress him. She did it because she loved the logic, the power in it, the sense of control in a life that rarely offered any. Julian, meanwhile, only noticed her when she got in the way of his quiet. One time she left a notebook on the kitchen island. He pushed it aside without looking. Didn't read the scribbled equations. Didn't notice the sketches of machine learning models in the margins. Didn't care. She was background. Like elevator music. Like white noise. But Marietta knew. She knew her daughter was brilliant. And she knew enough about the world to understand that brilliance wasn't always enough. Especially when you're young and black and the daughter of the help. So she told Amara the same thing every week. Learn as much as you can, baby. One day, he'll need what you know. Amara always rolled her eyes. But on some quiet level, she believed her mother. She always had. In Julian's world, everyone was replaceable. His CFO, his PR team, his lawyers. He once told a venture partner, "If I disappear tomorrow, Vanta keeps running. That's the point." But he didn't realize. He'd already been replaced. Not by a machine. By someone he didn't even see. Have you ever been overlooked by someone who had no idea how much you were capable of? Or have you overlooked someone who later surprised you? Drop your story in the comments. You never know who's watching, learning, rising. The morning after the crash, the penthouse was a mausoleum. No housekeepers. No assistants. No food deliveries. Just the echo of Julian's breathing. He hadn't slept. He hadn't changed out of his shirt from yesterday, now wrinkled and stained with spilled espresso and defeat. The lights remained dim. The air smelled like metal and silence. Amara hesitated at the service entrance. She clutched her backpack against her chest, thumb brushing the broken zipper. Her mother had begged her to stay home. "You don't owe that man a damn thing, Amara." But this wasn't about him. It was about the moment. A moment she had seen in her head 100 times. The moment where someone needed something she could give. And this time, she wasn't going to wait for permission. Julian barely reacted when she entered. He was sitting on the floor against the wall of his office, surrounded by shattered glass and silent screens. His phone, now cracked, lay face down beside him. For a second, he didn't seem to know who she was. "You the maid's girl." She didn't correct him. She walked over to the main terminal, opened her backpack, and pulled out a small, battered laptop. The screen had a scratch running through the corner. But when she opened it, it glowed. Alive. She plugged it into one of the remaining ports. Julian's head snapped up. "Wait, what are you?" "You had a blind spot," she said calmly. "In the subroutine linking the predictive learning layer to the trading logic. I noticed it in a live stream you did 2 years ago. Someone exploited it." Julian blinked like she was speaking another language. What?" Amara didn't look at him. She typed. Fes. Command line windows opened. I don't know who did it yet, she said. But I can trace the packet trail. Your backup AI routines weren't purged. They were quarantined. Julian forced himself to his feet. You're telling me the system isn't completely dead? Not yet, she replied. But it will be. If you wait any longer. There was a long silence. Julian stared at her, this quiet girl with borrowed shoes, worn-out jeans, and eyes that looked like they'd seen far too much and still didn't blink. You're just a kid, he said quietly. I'm the kid who understands your code better than your engineers, she replied. He took a breath. Still didn't fully trust it. Didn't want to trust her. But he walked over. And watched. For the next 6 hours, they sat side by side. He didn't speak much. Just listened as she narrated what she was doing. You used hard-coded API endpoints in a few testing modules. That's how they found you. I think the attacker was someone internal. There are markers in the encryption keys, familiar ones. Your own code betrayed you. Because it knew you too well. Julian sat with that. It hurt more than the numbers. At one point, Amara stood to stretch her back. Her notebook fell from her lap. Julian picked it up. Page after page of his own architecture, reverse-engineered, optimized, annotated. Sketches of logic maps. Old quotes from his lectures. Ideas he hadn't published yet. You wrote all this? He asked. Amara didn't answer. She just looked at him. And for once, he understood the weight of her silence. Around 8:30 p.m., Amara closed her laptop and leaned back in the chair. I've isolated the breach, she said. I can build a mirror system from what's left. But I'll need time. Julian rubbed his face. I don't have much of that. She stood. Picked up her bag. Then let's not waste it. She left without asking for thanks. Julian sat in the dark for a long time, staring at the place where she had been. Then, finally, he whispered the words he hadn't said to anyone in years. Thank you. And meant it. Have you ever had a moment where you knew you had to act, even if it wasn't your problem, even if no one asked? Share your story below. Sometimes, the smallest acts of courage change everything. Julian didn't sleep that night. He sat in the same leather chair in the corner of his penthouse office, watching the faint light from the server room pulse in the dark like a wounded animal. The floor still glittered with broken glass. His empire, once pristine, now looked like it had suffered an internal war. Because it had. And the battlefield was him. But this time, there was someone else on the field too. Someone who didn't look like a savior. The next morning, Amara was back. She didn't knock. She didn't wait. She entered the space like it didn't belong to him anymore. And maybe it didn't. Her laptop was already open by the time Julian noticed her. You always walk in like that? He said, half joking. She didn't look up. Only when the system's still bleeding. She wasn't being disrespectful. She was being honest. Julian didn't push. He poured them both coffee, his imported, hers instant, and sat across from her at the long table where billion-dollar deals used to be made. Now, it was covered in wire diagrams, code logs, and scribbled notes from a borrowed notebook that was taped together at the spine. She tapped her screen. The breach didn't just attack your AI. It mimicked it. He leaned in. Explain. The attacker didn't just override commands. They cloned your logic tree and used it against you. She turned the screen toward him. It showed two identical visual maps. One was Vanta. The other was the clone. Julian's heart sank. This is my code. No, she said. It's almost your code. Whoever did this copied it down to your old syntax habits. They knew how you think. That's not possible. Amara tilted her head. Isn't it? Julian rubbed his temple. His mind was foggy. He'd built Vanta from scratch, surrounded by teams, NDAs, and digital firewalls taller than government systems. No one, not even his CTO, had full access. But now, someone had replicated it. Not from outside. From inside. He sat back, suddenly cold. There's only one person who could have pulled this off, he said. Who? Julian hesitated. His name's Nathan Calder. My former co-founder. We split when I refused to sell Vanta to a private hedge fund. He wanted control. I wanted independence. Did he leave clean? Amara asked. Julian nodded slowly. We bought him out. But you didn't change your patterns, she said, turning her screen back. You kept your logic, your naming conventions, your echo trails. You left your door open. He just waited. Julian said nothing, because she was right. For the next 3 days, they worked in near silence. Amara coded like a storm, spinning through firewall patches, diagnostic tools, and new learning algorithms. Julian watched, and slowly began to help. But he also watched her. Her posture, her sharp thinking, her lack of hesitation. He'd worked with the best minds in finance, and none of them made him feel this irrelevant. It didn't hurt his pride. It threatened it. On day 4, something cracked. They were testing the backup node cluster Amara had designed when Julian made a change to the core predictive module without telling her. Just a small one. A tweak. But when she caught it, her voice sliced through the air. What did you do? Julian froze. It was just a minor. You changed the filter weights. They were too conservative. I made them that way on purpose, she snapped. If we go too aggressive too soon, we could trigger the same exposure that opened the first breach. It's my system, he muttered. A long silence followed. Amara slowly closed her laptop. And then she said something Julian never expected to hear. Then rebuild it yourself. She stood, packed up her things. He didn't stop her, because he didn't know how. She was halfway to the elevator when he called out. Amara. She stopped, but didn't turn. I'm sorry, he said. Quite heavy. I've always been the smartest person in the room, he added. Until now. She turned. Her face was unreadable. I'm not trying to replace you, she said. I know, he replied. I'm trying to save you. That night, Julian sat alone in his kitchen for the first time in a decade. He made ramen, burned it, watched a documentary on quantum computing but couldn't focus. He kept thinking about a girl who'd never been in a boardroom, never worn a power suit, never been paid a single cent, and yet she was leading the most important rebuild of his life. The next morning when she arrived, the desk was clear. No arrogance. No ego. Just 2 laptops. 2 chairs. And Julian waiting with a notebook in his hand. I wrote down everything I remembered about the original Vanta threads, he said. You were right. My system had blind spots. Amara blinked, took the notebook, sat down, opened her laptop, and nodded once. Let's fix it. As they worked, something subtle changed. He stopped talking down to her. She stopped defending herself. They became partners. Not equals yet, but closer than either had ever thought possible. And just as the new version, Vantalite, began to stabilize, a new message appeared in Julian's inbox. From Nathan Calder. Subject, let's talk terms before I go public. Julian's face went pale. Amara read over his shoulder. What does he mean, go public? Julian didn't answer. Not right away. Because deep down he knew what was coming. And this time, it wasn't just about money. It was about everything. The email sat like a landmine in Julian's inbox. From Nathan Calder. Subject, let's talk terms before I go public. Body, you're not in control anymore. You never were. But I'll give you one last chance to protect what little name you have left. Meet me. Tonight. Midnight. Same rooftop where we sealed the first deal. Come alone. Julian read the message 3 times before closing the laptop. He didn't say a word to Amara. She noticed. Of course she did. They were at the whiteboard, sketching the final architecture of Vantalite's core stabilizer. She was walking him through her neural proxy model when she paused mid-sentence. You're somewhere else, she said. Julian forced a smile. Just tired. Don't lie, she said softly. You're not good at it. He sighed. It's Calder. Her jaw tightened. What did he say? Julian hesitated. He wants to meet. When? Midnight. Are you going? I should. Amara looked at him like she was watching a child walk into a trap. You're not walking into that alone, she said. I have to. Why? Julian looked at her. And for the first time, he told the truth. I met Nathan when I was 24. He was already rich. I was broke and hungry. He funded the first version of Vanta. Taught me how to pitch. How to bluff. How to win. He paused. He also taught me how to destroy people. Quietly. Amara folded her arms. So why'd you walk away from him? Julian met her eyes. Because I saw what power did to him. And I didn't want to become that. The beat. And then I did. That night, just before midnight, Julian stepped into the glass elevator of the adjacent tower. The wind howled above the city as the rooftop door opened. Nathan Calder was waiting. Black coat. Slick back silver hair. Whiskey in hand. You look like hell, Jules. Julian said nothing. Calder chuckled. Let me guess. You rebuilt it. The system. With some intern from the kitchen. Julian's fists clenched. Her name is Amara James. And she's 10 times the traitor either of us ever were. Nathan scoffed. Sure she is. Until people find out. Julian frowned. Find out what? Nathan reached into his pocket. Tossed a file folder onto the rooftop table. Inside, a stack of photographs, recordings, screenshots. Mark. At 15. At 16. At 17. Sitting in the corner of Julian's office. Watching his webinars. Screens open. Notes visible. She's been cloning your work for years, Nathan said. That's intellectual theft, Jules. Doesn't matter how genius she is. If this leaks, she goes down. And so do you. Julian's stomach twisted. It wasn't just betrayal. It was blackmail. You had her followed? I had her watched, Nathan corrected. Big difference. And I saved you the trouble. Now you can walk away clean. Blame her. Rebuild with a safer face. Julian's voice was ice. She didn't steal a damn thing. She studied. She learned. She filled in the gaps you and I were too arrogant to see. Nathan raised a brow. So you're choosing her? Julian stepped forward. I'm standing with her. Nathan's smirk faded. You'll regret that. I already don't. What Julian didn't know was that Amara was already watching. Downstairs in the surveillance room, Amara stood over the backup system. She'd suspected something was wrong when Julian wouldn't meet her eyes before leaving. So she tapped into the rooftop's audio feed. Activated the emergency drone. She heard every word. When Nathan called her a thief, she flinched. But when Julian defended her, she cried. Just once. One tear. Then she wiped it away. Because tears didn't fix systems. She opened a terminal. Typed a command. Initiate cascade firewall lockdown. Calder.exe. Back on the roof, Nathan's phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Sir, what did you do? He growled. Julian's phone buzzed too. Incoming transmission. System trace complete. Source breach. Calder Enterprise. His eyes widened. A message from Amara popped up beneath it. We got him. Julian smiled. For the first time in weeks, it felt real. He looked up at Nathan. I didn't do anything. The pause. She did. The next morning, headlines flooded the news cycle. Calder Empire exposed in massive market sabotage plot. Whistleblower AI reveals former tech giant behind black box breach. Young black woman behind Vantalight's restoration named in historic suit. Amara's photo appeared beside Julian's for the first time. She looked powerful. She looked proud. She looked ready. When Julian arrived at the office later that day, Amara was already there. Laptop open. Press calling. Investors waiting. But she looked at him and smiled. You okay? He nodded. We stopped him. No, she said. We exposed him. Now we start. The first 48 hours after the Calder exposure were a blur of headlines, interviews, and meetings. Amara was everywhere. Her name trended on social media. Her face filled morning shows. One network called her the silent genius who brought down Wall Street's golden boy. Another labeled her the Maid's daughter who outcoded the billionaires. She should have been celebrated. Instead, she felt like a walking spectacle. The backlash was subtle at first. A few reporters made jabs about her age, her education, her clothes. One article asked if she had truly done the work or simply been a figurehead in Julian Cross's redemption arc. Then came the online hate. Tweets, comments, messages that stung like open wounds. She's just a diversity prop. Affirmative action genius. Watch how fast Cross drops her when this is over. She didn't reply. She just closed her laptop. But inside, a voice whispered, "They still don't see you. They only see what they want you to be." That night, she stayed late in the office. Alone. She looked out the window, down at the city lights, and felt more invisible than ever. She'd built something extraordinary. But all they wanted to talk about was how she got there. Not what she did. Julian found her still sitting in the dark at 2 a.m. "You okay?" he asked gently. She didn't look at him. "Do you think I stole it?" she whispered. He blinked. "What?" "Vanta. Your work. Your legacy." Julian stepped closer. "I think you saved it. People think I copied you. Used you. That I'm just here to make you look good. Do you believe that?" Her eyes glistened. "I don't know what I believe anymore." Julian pulled out a chair and sat beside her. "I used to think power protected me," he said. "But it didn't. It just made me blind. You, Amara, you see everything. Even the things that hurt." The pause. "Maybe that's your real gift." She leaned back. Let the silence settle. It didn't fix anything. But it helped her breathe. The next day, she walked into the building and found her access card deactivated. The front desk receptionist wouldn't meet her eyes. "Security protocol," he mumbled. Julian was already in the building. She texted. He didn't reply. She waited in the lobby for almost 45 minutes, feeling eyes on her. Like she didn't belong. Like a fraud. Like a guest in someone else's system. When Julian finally appeared, he looked like he hadn't slept. "I didn't know," he said. But she couldn't look at him. "You could have made sure." Inside the boardroom, it was worse. A group of investors, white, well-tailored, smiling too tightly, waited at the head of the table. One of them stood. "Ms. James, we've been reviewing the press, and we think it's best if you step back from public-facing roles for a while." Julian's jaw tensed. She froze. "Why?" she asked. "Optics," another investor replied. "The Calder situation is volatile. We can't afford another PR wave tied to your backstory." "My backstory?" "It distracts from the product." Julian stood. "She is the product." "No," the lead investor replied. "She's the story. And stories pass." Amara left the room before she broke. Julian followed, but she didn't wait. That night, she sat on the train back to Queens, hoodie pulled over her curls, laptop in her backpack, hand on her mother's old rosary beads. She thought about deleting everything. Quitting. Letting it all burn. "Maybe they were right," she whispered. "Maybe people like me aren't meant to lead. Just build in silence." But then she got home. And her mother was waiting. Marietta wrapped her arms around her like it was her first day of kindergarten again. "I saw you on TV," she said, tears in her eyes. "You looked like you were born to be there." "I'm not sure I was." "You think you studied all those years for nothing?" "I thought I studied for freedom," Amara said. "But I'm still begging for permission." Marietta cupped her daughter's face. "They will never give you permission. You take your seat. You speak your truth. You lead. And when it gets too loud, remember who you are. The beat. You're my daughter. And that means you were made for hard things." The next morning, Amara returned. To the building. To the elevator. To the office. People stared. She didn't care. She walked into the boardroom uninvited, placed her laptop on the table, and said, "I'm not going anywhere." The investors froze. She clicked play on a screen recording. Lines of code, architecture design, neural learning models, all her work. Her voiceover spoke clearly. "Everything you're profiting from came from these hands. These thoughts. This mind. If I'm the story, fine. But the story doesn't end with me stepping back. It begins with you stepping up." She looked at Julian. He looked stunned. Then he nodded. The investors said nothing. But the message was clear. She was still standing. The day after Amara stood her ground in the boardroom, she stayed home. Not out of fear, but reflection. She lay in bed, surrounded by notebooks, some old, some new. Margins filled with formulas, phrases she copied from Julian's webinars, drawings of AI architecture next to grocery lists. Each one told the same story. The girl who watched, and learned, and waited. But she wasn't waiting anymore. She was writing. On the floor beside her bed was a fresh notebook. On the first page, she scribbled something in bold black ink. If the system doesn't make space for you, create a new one. Not to fit in. To lead. She stared at it. Then underlined it. Twice. That night, Julian called. "Still speaking to me?" he asked, half joking. "Barely," she said, not unkindly. The pause. "I wanted to tell you something." "What?" "You were right to confront them. And I was wrong to let them sit you down while they stood over your work." She didn't reply. He continued. "I lost everything once because I put power above people. I won't do it again." She exhaled. "You're learning." He smiled into the silence. "I had a good teacher." The next morning, they met in the office's rooftop garden. It had been empty for months. Amara walked in with a thermos of tea. Julian had a file under his arm. She raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Everything," he said. "Everything that was Vanta. Every patent. Every license. Every name attached to it." She blinked. He placed the file in front of her. "I'm transferring it all to you." She froze. I don't need ownership." "But you've already earned it." "It's not about." "It is," he said. "Because the world will never give you credit unless someone makes it undeniable." The beat. "This is me, making it undeniable." She opened the file. Saw her name. Amara James, founder and CTO, Vanta Systems. Not co-founder. Founder. She looked up. "You really mean it?" "I should have meant it sooner." She stared at him. And smiled. Not because she needed his validation, but because he finally saw her. They spent the rest of the day rewriting the vision for Vanta. No longer just a trading AI, but a platform for open-source financial education. A program to train young coders from marginalized communities. A system that wouldn't just make money, but make space. For people like her. For minds like hers. That night, she stood in front of a classroom in Harlem. 18 teenagers watched her with cautious eyes. She introduced herself. "My name is Amara James. And when I was your age, I didn't know if anyone like me could ever write code, much less change the world with it." She paused. Took a breath. Then added, "But I was wrong. The world didn't need me to change for it. It needed me to change it." The room stayed silent. Then one girl in the back raised her hand. "How did you do it?" Amara smiled. "I stopped asking to be seen. And I started building anyway." The stage was set for the World Tech AI and Finance Conference, the most prestigious gathering of minds, money, and media in the tech finance world. Julian had once been its keynote speaker. This year, he wasn't even on the brochure. But Amara James was. At first, she refused. Said she didn't want the spotlight. Said she wasn't ready. Julian told her, "The system tried to erase you in silence. Now you make them hear you out loud." She said yes. The ballroom was packed. Rows of suits. Whispers of judgment. Flashes from press cameras. On the screens, her name appeared. Amara James. Founder and CTO, Vanta Systems. Topic: Redesigning Power, Ethical AI and the Future of Finance. She stepped out wearing a navy blazer, jeans, and sneakers. No pretense. No performance. Just presence. She started with a story. "My mother used to carry 2 pairs of shoes to work, one for cleaning, one for walking home. She cleaned offices where no one knew her name. But I remember every room, every screen, every silence. I used to sit in the corner of a billionaire's penthouse, watching webinars on a cracked tablet while my mom wiped down his counters. I studied those screens like scripture. And one day, I understood them better than he did. Silence. Not boredom. Reverence. Then she pulled up the model of Vantalite. Explained the code. The logic. The ethics woven into the system. She showed how it had rebuilt itself, not just through technology, but through truth. The audience leaned forward. No one checked their phones. Then came the question session. The moderator, a polished tech executive, smiled tightly as he asked, "Some have accused you of benefiting from sympathy, from being elevated for your story more than your skills. How do you respond to that?" The air tightened. Cameras zoomed in. Amara didn't blink. "I'd rather be doubted because of where I came from than respected for what I didn't do. And I didn't just benefit from my story. I rewrote it. You don't have to believe in me. But you'll remember me." The room erupted. Not fake applause. Roars. And from the back row, Amara James wiped her cheeks with the same hands that once scrubbed baseboards. After the talk, the moderator asked Julian to come on stage. He declined. Instead, he stood in the wings, watched her, and whispered to himself, "That's what real leadership looks like." Backstage, Amara found him waiting. She was still catching her breath. "You crushed it," he said. She rolled her eyes. "I didn't think my heart would make it." "You rewired a $1 trillion AI system," he said. "A stage shouldn't scare you." She looked at him, eyes full, not with doubt, but pride. "I used to think power came from control," she said. "Now I know it comes from clarity." He nodded. "Are you ready?" he asked. "For what?" "To do it again." They stepped outside. Photographers swarmed them. Microphones shoved toward their faces. "Amara, is it true you're starting a new division?" "Julian, is she the future of Vanta?" They kept walking. Then Amara stopped, turned back, faced the crowd, and said, "Vanta isn't just my future. It's the beginning of your future too. The age of silent geniuses is over. You're looking at the architect now." Then she turned back toward Julian, toward legacy, toward everything. 3 months later, the Vantalite Innovation Lab opened its doors. It was smaller than Julian's original empire. No marble floors, no fountains, no concierge in a tux. Just glass walls, buzzing minds, and sunlight. At the entrance hung a sign made of brushed steel. "Welcome to the future." Underneath, in smaller letters, "Founded by Amara James." Julian sat in a corner of the lab that day, watching a group of teenage girls in hoodies and hijabs debug a simulation using Amara's training modules. He smiled. He didn't speak much these days in public meetings. He didn't have to. He had already said the most important thing a man like him could ever say. "I was wrong." And then, she was right. Amara entered, a tablet under her arm, her hair tied up in a high puff, confidence in her walk. She passed him and grinned. "You gonna sit there all day or teach these kids what not to do?" He smirked. "What, like I taught you?" "Exactly." The lab wasn't the only thing that had changed. The old board was gone. A new team, diverse and daring, now stood behind her. And Marietta? She was on payroll now, not as a cleaner, as director of operations. First item she approved? Lunch breaks. And health insurance. That night, Amara walked the halls of the lab in silence, taking it all in. She paused in front of a photo they'd hung by the elevator. It was a still from her first conference keynote. Her hand raised. Eyes bright. Face fearless. Beneath it, "You're looking at the architect now." She stared at it for a long time. Then heard a voice behind her. "You remember what you said to me that first night?" "Julian." She turned. "You said, you trusted your system more than people." He nodded slowly. "And now I trust a person more than any system." The pause. "I trust you." She walked with him to the rooftop garden, the place they once argued, once cracked open. Now it bloomed with herbs, flowers, and chairs where students read books on coding and finance. Julian looked up at the stars. "I spent most of my life thinking I had to earn power so no one could ever take it away." Amara looked at him. "But now you know real power is something you give away." He smiled. "You taught me that." Later that week, Amara returned to her old school in Queens. The auditorium hadn't changed. Cracked floors, flickering lights. But the stage was full. Rows of kids. Dozens of parents. Alumni who remembered her. She stepped to the mic and took a breath. I was once told I didn't belong in boardrooms. That I didn't have the right degrees, the right voice, the right look. And for a while I believed that. Until I realized something simple. She looked around the room. I don't need to wait for someone to open a door for me. I build my own. And I hold it open behind me. The crowd stood. Not for a tech founder. Not for a local girl done good. But for one of their own who never forgot them. That night, she wrote one final quote in her notebook. The same notebook she used when she sat silently in Julian's kitchen all those years ago. They thought I was background. I became the blueprint. She closed it. And finally slept. Have you ever had a moment where you stopped asking for permission and decided to build your own way forward? Share it in the comments. Your story could be the spark someone else needs today. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.